The context of the first reading from Maccabees today is a situation where Alexander the Great had taken over from Sicily to Egypt, all the way through Israel and all of India, creating his own kingdom. And Antiochus IV came to reign, and it was his desire that everybody worship the pagan gods. And so they forbade the Jewish people to practice any of their faith. They couldn't worship in the temple. They had to eat food that was not allowed by their laws. They were forbidden to undergo circumcision. There were all the things that meant so much to them. But there were some who gave in to the Greeks, and there's others, like the people in the first reading, who said that they would rather die than disobey the laws of God. And so this mother and her 7 sons are cruelly tortured. If you read the whole passage, it's an awful torture they went through. But they were so convinced in the resurrection, and this is centuries before Jesus, so convinced that those who were faithful to God's law would one day rise to everlasting life. And that reading then brings us to the gospel today, where the Sadducees are questioning Jesus about the resurrection because they don't believe in it. They don't believe in afterlife. They don't believe in angels or spirits. And so they pose a question to Jesus, trying to trip him up. And the question is, as you remember in the reading, there's a woman who had been married 7 times, and then she finally died, and who would she be married to in heaven? The Jewish law was that a person's name needed to be preserved. So if a man died, his brother was to take his wife as his wife if they died childless, and then to bring up children for him so that the man's property would be preserved, the widow would be taken care of. That was the Jewish law. And so he poses this possible question. There was a man whose little girl, about 10 years old, asked him what it was like in heaven. And he said, oh, it's a wonderful place where you're going to be with all the good people that ever lived. And there's no more sickness or pain or death. And it's a land of milk and honey. And she said, what? No cokes in heaven? I think sometimes when we read this passage, we say, what? No marriage in heaven? And it leaves us with questions. Will I not see my husband or wife in heaven? It doesn't say you won't see them. It just says there won't be marriage. Marriage is for this life. There are so many things we experience that are for this life alone. But once we are in eternity and we have a glorified body, then everything is so very different. And we ask the same questions. I get asked the questions too. Is there food in heaven? Is there golf courses? Is there baseball? Is there beer? Are there automobiles and airplanes? And all the things that we find pleasure in life here, we ask, are those things in heaven? And the answer is no, because those things are for this life. And if we can enjoy things in this life so much, and it mirrors only the joy that we'll have in heaven. Eye has not seen, ear has not heard, nor has it entered into the heart of man what God has in store for us in heaven. We can't even begin to imagine eternal happiness, can we? It's just kind of beyond our ability to comprehend. And yet Jesus promises us that that's what it will be. And so in our faith, we look forward to an incredible eternal life where there is just face-to-face in the presence of God, where there's a joy, a peace, a happiness, with none of the difficulties we face in this life, even death. And there will be, for us, an eternal place of happiness. So the word in the scriptures this morning is that there is a heaven, and God has destined all of us to be there. He says he's not a God of the dead, but of the living, for to him all are alive. When we die, just the place is changed. We're not annihilated. We just move from earth to heaven, and we continue to live for all eternity. Death is difficult for us. The month of November, we remember all the saints on All Saints' Day. We remember all the souls in purgatory on November 2nd, All Souls' Day. And there's been 6 or 7 funerals right here in our parish in the last week and a half. And for me, it gets difficult sometimes, a little overburdening, because I feel my heart goes out to the families who lose a loved one. But at the same time, what buoys me up and them as well is the hope and the belief in eternal life, that the loved one who is gone is happy forever in heaven, and one day we will join all of them again. It will be a great and glorious day to see our parents, our grandparents, husbands, wives, children who have gone to heaven. So we look forward to that with joy.